Now, what a World Cup we had. We certainly enjoyed it. Our next guest certainly enjoyed it too. It's time for the official John Duggan homecoming with a massive response to his World Cup diary. He's up next. Here are some of his best bits.
Good morning, guys. Dobro Utra from Russia. It's like any other global city in the world, lads. It's just the Bolshevik hat, and I'm putting it on right now. It's not like the Bourne Identity, folks. It's another global city like any other. I never thought I would wear this hat. I bought it when I bought the Ushanka. But given the day that's in it and what's happened here in the last 24 hours, I had to take out the hat and wear it today. So, it's just what a day! What a day for Russia.
Good afternoon yourself. Tell us about Ulyanovsk, John, because this is something that's come onto our radar today, and we're all very intrigued by this.
Yeah, it's a city kind of not too far from Kazan in Russia, and is where Lenin was born, of course, the revolutionary leader. And I've got contacts over here, and I've been offered the freedom of the city of Ulyanovsk.
How do you get the freedom of a city, a massive city with 600,000 people of a population? This is no little village, John. Like, how do you get approached? Do you make an inquiry?
I was just told the freedom has been offered.
By who?
By the mayoral office.
The mayor of the town?
Not the actual mayor. Don't be quizzing me. Don't be quizzing me like a primetime journalist. And it's not prime time. When the ceremony happens, you'll find out. We'll get all the information for you. We'll get you we'll show you the papers that be stamped and all the ceremonial scrolls and everything. So let's just chill out until it happens. Well, this is a very important building behind me, lads. It's the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. This was the residence of the monarchy in Russia. It was the capital of Russia, St. Petersburg, until the October Revolution in 1917, which happened here at the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. We nearly had 1 million people dying here in terms of civilians, starvation, huge issues. And including Vladimir Putin's baby brother was one person who died. So,
John, it just looked like Captain Jack Sparrow walked behind you.
I was making a serious point, so I don't actually know what's going on behind me.
We're joined live in the studio now by John Duggan. He's a writer from Ireland's daily sports show, Off the Ball. John, thanks for joining us in the studio today. It's your first time, obviously, in St. Petersburg, in Russia as well. What have your impressions so far been of the atmosphere of the country?
What a beautiful city. It reminds me a bit of Paris. Of course, France here tonight against Belgium in the semi-finals of the World Cup. And the World Cup, to me, is the greatest show on earth. That's what I've always felt since I've been watching it on television as a boy. And it's lived up to every expectation, and Russia have been excellent hosts.
That must be John Duggan's on the line. A very good morning to you, John.
Morning, Dave. How are you doing? I'll pull out all the stops this morning, guys. This is a tube taker, which I think is a hat they have in Kazan here. We're now 448 miles east of Moscow, with the Kul Sharif Mosque behind me.
John, this is our last time talking to you from Moscow here on OTB AM. So your final thoughts on, I guess, the trip of a lifetime?
Well, thank you for your support, and thank you for all the people who sent in kind comments over the month. I've had an amazing journey. Just final thoughts that I thought the host nation whatever about governments, I thought the people here were just fantastic hosts. And having seen 6 cities and they have been to 17 games, it's not a Potemkin village. It's a country like any other. Ordinary people are like each other everywhere you go in the world. And I think what the World Cup brings is that beautiful meld of colour. Obviously, Qatar is a bit of an unknown, and the USA, 48 teams, and the Mexico and Canada are far places to go, and that's a long way into the future. I wish we were here as the Republic of Ireland. I wish we'd made it. And the best memories, the memories are just of attacking football. Great stories. The Argentina soap opera was an amazing story. Germany being knocked out, Brazil's failure when they were expected to succeed, France being the best team overall, I would say, and really exciting games from Spain, Portugal to Belgium, Japan. And then brilliant stories from Mexico to Croatia. So just a magical experience, one I'll never forget.
Yeah, wow. A reminder of happy times. How are you?
Jaron, good morning. I'm quite humbled by that package. So lucky and humbled, I would say.
The hats, let's talk hats. You brought this one. So.
Yeah, the first Ushanka I bought wasn't very, I would say, well manufactured, and the thing fell off it. This fell off it after about a day, and then I got an army cap, and I was doing a piece because you were doing pieces on mainly phones, and we see with Philip Bromwell and RT and the technology now that if you have good connectivity, you can do things on a phone. It looks like you've got a cameraman, but you can do stuff off a phone. So there was one period when I was just lying on the ground, and it's the only way I could get a good shot with, say, the Kremlin behind me. And I left the army cap to my right. And when I did the piece, because obviously you're looking at the camera, the army cap is gone.
Oh no!
So I bought this actually on the way home from the airport. So I had to get one of them because I couldn't not leave without a Ushanka, having been there for 37 days.
So the army cap is gone. Where do you get the? Do you just buy the army cap they sell them?
Yeah, there's a place I went to called, if anybody's ever in Moscow, the Izmailovsky Market, where I was haggling with a guy who was offering them to me for about €5, and then when you go down to Red Square, they're about €100.
Right.
So there's a big difference. You need to shop around to get the good merchandise, but I still have
it looked like a proper army hat, so you could just buy a Garda cap and walk around with the Garda cap on. I mean, it's a bit.
Yeah, it didn't really fit me either. So they put it on, but it didn't
Irish
really
heads
fit.
are notoriously big.
Yeah, and I bought this thing as well. They got the other thing with all the medals on. I got that at the airport as well. But look, that was all part of it. I mean, I don't think you can go to any country without trying to sample some of the souvenirs. So, including Mr. Putin here.
Who is it? Putin the whole way through, or is it a bunch
No,
of...
so you open up Putin, and then you get Yeltsin. This is like Make and Do, that RT two series.
Owen's too young. He's no idea who Mary Fitzgerald is.
Then there's Gorbachev, and then you open Gorbachev and you get Stalin, and then you open Stalin and then you get Lenin.
All right.
So that's the dolls.
Stalin and Lenin fall over.
Yeah. Well, obviously communism's gone now, so there you go.
Just in shot there. It's perfect. I mean, Stockholm syndrome is a thing that kidnapped victims get. Do you feel like you have a bit of St. Petersburg syndrome, that you fell in love with that place in particular?
I just think it's a place that everybody should go to. Obviously visas, and you're going to get visas to travel to Russia, and it's probably a little bit of a pain, but I just think it's a beautiful place. It's very European, kind of Parisian boulevards, Italian architecture, lovely cafes, canals, and I found it a fascinating place. It's somewhere that of all the places I was in, and I love walking around the likes of Nizhny Novgorod or Kaliningrad, which are closed cities, and kind of inhaling the history of them. But St. Petersburg would be the one place I'd like to go back to if I ever was lucky enough to get the chance to go back again. St.
Petersburg was the Russia Today interview happened in St. Petersburg, and also the Jack Sparrow incident happened in St. Petersburg, did it?
Yes.
I would like to say that the Jack Sparrow incident wasn't my fault.
I was actually
probably
for the first and only time I was annoyed because I was trying to make a point about people dying in Leningrad in World War II.
It was Tommy in my ear saying, "There's people behind them. Talk about the people behind them."
And, so that was
perils of live TV, folks.
Yeah. So that was the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg, where just when you think about the history there, that's where the Romanovs, had a residence. That's where the October Revolution happened, and it's right in the middle of St. Petersburg. And there's just nowhere. It's all completely bare and open. There's no park benches. There's nowhere to sit. It's just a completely open square. Maybe like the front square of Trinity College. That's what it looked like. So, I was just blown away by St. Petersburg, the architecture, the palaces. And actually probably had the most disappointing atmosphere for a game, France and Belgium. So I'll miss the South Americans. They were great fun all through the tournament. The South American fans were just brilliant.
Is St. Petersburg very touristy? Like there were people dressed up in costume like front square, and does it have the feel of a place that is getting a throughput of tourists?
Yes, although a lot of the tourists that go to Russia are from China. And from Asia, rather than Europe. But of all the cities in Russia, I would think it would be the one that would have the most, tourists. So Moscow, everything is very much in a central part of Moscow. So the Red Square, the Kremlin, the Bolshoi, that church I was outside, the Christ the Savior church.
When they rebuilt.
They're all around the same area. But once you're out of that area in Moscow, apart from the beautiful metro, there's not much to see.
Yeah. Is Moscow huge? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, Moscow's very big, and it's like over 12 million people.
Okay.
But as I said in some of my later diaries, once the fans started leaving the city, the colour started to seep out of the city a little bit.
Yeah.
And I suppose I felt so, my mind was kind of moved by I was expecting an unsafe place. I was expecting to be possibly really worried about my belongings. I was expecting a grimness to Moscow. So I was actually happy to see so much police early on in the World Cup that I knew that nothing's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
When you're walking around with your life on you, your money, your passes, your passport, because you have to bring your passport around in case it's checked. But the more it kind of went on, the more I kind of got a little bit uncomfortable with the amount of police that were in Moscow. And even the last couple of days, there's police everywhere, and you're thinking, is this really necessary? And if I'm walking around here in February on my own, is it really necessary? You know, so that is one thing that actually my mindset changed a little bit on it.
I guess
as things went on.
It's because of terrorism, really. Like any of these major sports events, they're now paranoid about any potential terrorism and making sure that they can be responsive pretty quick.
But speaking to people, is it like this throughout the year? And they said it is like this throughout the year. So that to me is a little bit of a control mechanism, which I felt was, would I want to live in Ireland with it like that? Probably not. But on the other hand, I felt extremely safe. And I felt that this would go off extremely well. But also, I think it has to go off well. I don't think any country or city can host a massive sporting event without it going off well. I think that's part of the deal when you sign up for it. So even Qatar, I don't know what we can expect there. Even a Qatar will probably go off well.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the perfect time of the year for Qatar. It might not be the perfect time of the year for the football tournament. It's a small geographical area. The stadiums will all be state of the art. Like, you need to, if we're talking about whether or not the functional running of the tournament, it's going to be perfect. Like, it will be perfect. Everything will run on time. How they got to the point of building that perfection on the backs of slaves and really questionable human rights and all the horrible things that have happened, like, that will somehow, they'll draw a curtain around that. You suspect by the time that comes around that those stories will disappear.
But just as much as the stories in Russia disappeared. Like, they announced early in the World Cup, they announced that they were raising the pension age in Russia. And it was just, by the way, we're doing that.
Yeah.
And protests are not allowed until after the tournament ends. So it was a shiny object as a country. And there are obviously issues in Russia. But I suppose what I was trying to convey when I was over there to everybody, first of all, what's it like? What does this place look like? And secondly, I wanted to convey, because I really do believe this, and this is not a naive thing to say, is that ordinary people everywhere you go are the same. And politics is politics, and you can separate politics from people. You know, we've had issues in this country. We've had issues with the, clerical abuse scandals, for example. The UK and the United States have had issues with the Iraq War. So I think that you can often separate the politics and the people, and that's what I was trying to convey, that Russian people are just like anybody else. And it was like people in Russia treated almost all of the 1.3 or 4 million people that travelled as hotel guests, as the way I would describe it, and that's the experience I definitely received. And I was just like trying to chronicle the moments last night from just walking through like a place like Nizhny Novgorod at night, on a Saturday night, just walking through it and inhaling what's going on, and all the fans that have been there from various different countries, some of whom would have hung on. I think like Argentina fans hanging around, Panama fans arriving for the next day's game against England, or to look at a place like Kaliningrad, which still has probably a lot of poverty and a lot of residue of the fact that it was a closed city and a bit of a square peg in a round hole geographically, because it was a Prussian-German city for hundreds of years. To see a place like Kazan, which is modern and upperly mobile, and then just as I've always, if anybody's followed, it's that amazing euphoria that I saw after Russia beat Spain, which is certainly the highlight I would have had of the World Cup. But when I reflect on the World Cup, one thing I have to say is the refereeing at the World Cup was very good. There was 4 red cards. In 2006, there's 28 red cards. And I think Kalina and the refereeing committee deserve a lot of credit for giving us a free-flowing World Cup with a lot of excitement.
What were VAR moments like in the stadium?
They were a little bit confusing, to be honest. The final was just madness. Just to see that in a final, the delay and the drama. We all knew what had happened. We all knew there was a dispute over a penalty kick.
Do they show the replays on the big screen?
No. They do this kind of package about half an hour before the game starts, where this is VAR and these are the things that VAR can be brought in for. But they didn't show replays really at all. They showed them obviously for the press. But everybody knew what was going on. Everybody knew there was a dispute, and then we see him running then to get to the...
That's a bit mad, isn't it? Not showing the replay.
Yeah. And then they, you just know that drama. It's almost like an interruption in a World Cup final to make a huge decision over a penalty.
At least it keeps the fans out of it, not showing the replay. It doesn't allow the referee to be influenced by boos or jeers or anything like that from a crowd who feel they've been screwed over. At least you can look at it in the cold light of day.
So it was you're freezing time is what you're doing in a World Cup final to for a major decision, which the Croatian players definitely felt turned the flow of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was the right decision still.
I think it's such a 50-50 decision.
Yeah.
As we discussed before, referees themselves can't even agree on it.
And they need to define that a bit more. It is up for discussion with the International Football Association Board or whatever that rule-making body is. That it's been on their agenda for the last 2 meetings and they haven't quite got to some kind of consolidated viewpoint about what the rule is. So there will always be that wiggle room until they actually manage to do that. A couple of quick texts from, tweets from people watching this morning. John Duggan, the Michael Palin of hashtag OTB AM legend. I mean, Michael Palin's not a bad cultural icon to be compared to.
I mean, I don't know, I get 80 days around the world, do I? Yeah, I know, that's a lovely thing to say.
Kyle Muckian, what was John's favourite city out of the 6 in Russia?
St. Petersburg, clearly. But there's definitely some great moments. It's just, I think it's, when you enter a World Cup stadium and you see Messi or Neymar or Mbappe, even warming up, you get that sense that this is the show, this is the deal, and you get a feeling that you rarely get in sports. You get it at maybe Twickenham, as we saw this year. You get it at All-Ireland hurling final, you get it at All-Ireland football final. I remember last year the All-Ireland football final, the planes going overhead Croke Park, and you're feeling, whoa, this is a real big deal. And that's why I think the GA is great with the parades, that you have that kind of shiver down the spine. And I think that the way I would describe the World Cup, and for anybody, if you can try and go, and obviously I was privileged to go as somebody who's working on it, the way I kind of felt, like I played blackjack for quite a while in my 20s, and it's like going to a World Cup is like you're getting dealt a blackjack every day, every single hand. You're getting dealt a blackjack, and you're just overwhelmed by the madness and the beauty of it. So. As Damien Duff was talking about underage soccer and developing young players, it's we have to try and qualify for these tournaments. We have to try and be at the show.
We're missing out.
Being at the show and being part of the journey, and I think that being a supporter is a huge part of our identity, because we create that identity in our own colour and in our own opinions and in our own view on things that nobody else can own. And when we own that, if you're a fan of, say, Galway or Clare or Limerick or Cork this weekend, you're going to own that. You're going to go to the game. You're going to have your opinions. You're going to have your couple of pints with the lads or the ladies, and you're going to then consume as much media as you can, and then you'll get your view on everything. And I think that what the World Cup can do is implant memories into somebody. That'll never leave them. And I'm sure there are people out there. I was speaking to a guy actually just before I went to the World Cup who was 18 in 1990, and he went to Ireland, Italy for the World Cup quarter-final. And I said, "Do you still have the ticket?" "Yeah, it's my mum's house, and it's this and it's that." And he hasn't left him. And I think that's what international football brings, is that kind of purity and that sense of belonging and that sense of colour. It's a tsunami of colour that I don't think really can be matched or equalled. I don't think it'll be equalled in rugby. Rugby will be a different thing for us next year, because we're expecting possibly to win the thing. The Olympics is something that you watch through your television screen and you cheer on the O'Donovans or Annalise Murphy, but it's kind of at a remote level, and it's also fragmented. Whereas the World Cup is something that is a journey. And for all those Peruvians, thinking of those Peruvians that mortgage their lives to get over to Russia, and Will they think it's worth it?
Yeah.
It'll probably be painful for the next year or two, but it'll definitely be worth it after 36 years not at a World Cup. And you even think of Australians. I saw very few Australians because they were out of the thing before it even really began. But I think Australians were there, Saudi Arabians were there, Peruvians were there, and even all the countries that weren't there, United States, Italy and Holland. So
do you think the expansion of the World Cup then is a positive?
It's a positive and a negative. It's a positive in terms of what I'm talking about with belonging, but it's a negative because you're going to have a lot of England, Panama style results, and you're not going to have it start until it starts. And to me, I see a negative in it, and because what I liked about Russia was, even though there was travel involved, a lot of because Moscow had 2 stadiums, a lot of the the congestion of colour was around the one place. And Moscow and St. Petersburg are not too far from each other, not Moscow and Nizhny Novgorod not too far from each other. Mexico to Canada to the United States, it just seems a bit too vast, and it doesn't seem as, whereas I think of a Germany World Cup or a France World Cup or an England World Cup, which hopefully we'll have sooner rather than later.
Or maybe, as Sepp Blatter says, an England and Ireland World Cup.
We have the...
Hey, Sepp, we think
Croke-
you got a raw deal there, Sepp.
We have Croke Park, we've got the Aviva Stadium, two great stadiums. Porky Queeve, don't mention the war. But yeah, there are some of the reflections on a lifetime experience.
You a bunch of moments. Do you want to give us 3 or 4?
Well, the Russia-Spain I talked about, that was, I think, the best game I saw. I saw 44 goals, but I didn't see any of the good goals. I didn't see Pavard. I didn't see Ronaldo's goal. They were in different places. Brazil-Belgium was probably the best game I saw, the most dramatic match I saw. Russia-Spain I've touched upon. And it's, as somebody described to me, the cinema verite of just holding up a selfie stick and capturing what you're seeing, and then 4 hours later coming out of watching Croatia, Denmark, and it's still going on to the same level where every single car, people are just hanging out of cars, beeping their horns, and just going mad in Moscow, and to the extent where the police were going round with a loudspeaker in these armoured trucks telling people to calm down.
Right.
That was pretty mad.
And everybody obeys the guys in the armoured trucks.
Well, there was a viral going around of people jumping on police cars and being hit by truncheons, and they said it was England fans. It was actually Russian fans after the Russia-Spain game. The final itself, we'd be lucky enough to have the final, and just seeing kind of things like the diffusion umbrella and that kind of thing, or Rafa Varane walk by me in the mix zone with the trophy, fireworks going off over the Luzhniki Stadium. Just hanging around with fans, like Poland and Senegal fans, and like Poland and Senegal don't play football matches against each other. No. And to see them taking photos with each other was just beautiful, I thought, and what football should be. And what I also I'm just kind of thinking about this kind of culture of football, especially in club football, which is a bit of a we hate culture. We hate you. We got to be put into pens and buses. The police have to be there and escort us to an area. I remember going to a League Cup final a couple of years ago, Chelsea-Tottenham, and nobody knew where anywhere was at Wembley to get in. So Chelsea and Tottenham fans are walking past each other with their bags, their little carrier bags of merchandise, looking which gate to get in. And once they get into the gate, they hate each other.
Yeah.
To me, thankfully, I think that is seeping out of football. I think the England fans were very well behaved, and a majority of them would be anyway. But there's no reason, having been to a Champions League final where Dortmund and Munich fans took the tube to Wembley, why we can't. I think society is moving to a better place with that football fans can't integrate and mingle. And I think that's one thing I definitely saw. Never felt, and obviously the police thing is a positive in that, but I never felt an undercurrent for 1 second of the World Cup of there being any trouble whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is another positive. But penalty shootouts are great at these things. England-Colombia was great, and just good stories, and ultimately the best team in France won it.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when you think about, nobody's going to ask the question of Kylian Mbappe for the next decade. Are you the best player now not to win a World Cup? And that's scary for a 19-year-old to be going into that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. People talking to me saying that it's the best World Cup that they remember. People remembering back all the way to '82. It's definitely right there.
And I think, once again, the refereeing has got a lot to do with that, and allowing the games to flow. Like Ronaldo, Suarez, I remember in the Portugal-Uruguay game, trying to gain an edge through play acting, and the referee just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that is a huge thing. I think back in '86, there was only 8 red cards. And then generally they're the best World Cups. I mean, the 86 was a very exciting World Cup, but I think it's where you are as a person. I was a 7-year-old lad watching it on television, and this is a very exotic thing beaming through my screen. But I went to Germany as a fan in 2006 and got a ticket off a tout, so I really hope the Republic of Ireland qualify for these things, because everybody should be able to get to that carnival and have the anticipation and the journey of it.
Yeah, so I think we should do whatever it takes to get to the next World Cup.
Yeah, we really need to qualify.
Something ominous about that, Ger.
We can start that journey now.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, making sure that Damien Duff and all of his colleagues from that group are involved with the under-15s, and because they'll be Kylian Mbappe's age time when the next World Cup comes.
Yeah, true. Good squad members.
John, great stuff. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ger. No, thank you.